Alright, so who saw The Hobbit this weekend? Wow, so I guess probably a whole bunch of you. Okay, cool. Now, if you happen to read any reviews of the film, you probably picked up that the world of film criticism seemed a little less interested in the actual movie than in the technology used to present it, specifically relating to the frame rate at which it was recorded and projected. Chances are this sounded something like Klingon to most people, and even if you did catch the basic idea of what they were all on about, there's a pretty good chance when you saw the movie, it didn't look appreciably different from the previous 3 movies nor any other similar big-budget film. So what's all the fuss about? Well, the short version goes something like this. The Hobbit was shot using a new breed of high-definition digital camera that captures images at 48 frames per second, or FPS, precisely twice as fast as the 24 frames per second that has been the default format for movie making for pretty much as long as anyone currently making movies has been alive. Here's why that matters. Motion picture cameras are actually just regular cameras capable of taking many pictures in rapid succession on individual exposure spaces on a film strip referred to as frames. When said film strip is played back, the rapid change of frames creates the illusion of a single moving image. The original cameras were operated using a hand crank, which created occasional jerky, unreal movements because of the expected rise and fall of quality associated with a manual crank. Automated cameras came later, with them came universal standard. Recording at 24 FPS created an illusion of movement reasonably close to the movement as seen by the eye in real life, with the visual artifact of motion blur hiding the scenes of the frame-to-frame transition. The camera used for The Hobbit takes those individual frames twice as fast, meaning that when it's projected back out, there's even less motion the human eye can perceive for the most part, and as a result, the moving image becomes spectacularly clear. Okay, I hear you saying, that's interesting, but I didn't notice any big difference when I saw it. Well, chances are you didn't see it in its native format. See, not every theater is properly equipped to show the movie in its high-definition format. As a result, the majority of Hobbit screenings in both 2D and 3D ran a version of the film that's been scaled back down to traditional 24 frames per second, rendering it largely indistinguishable from traditional film projecting. The theaters showing it in 44 FPS, by the way, labeled it as such, so if you had seen it that way, you'd probably have known. So why were the critics behind most of the film's early reviews so fixated on this one technological detail that, however interesting, was only going to be a factor or even an option for a comparatively small number of readers and or viewers? Well, because the studio held most of its early press screenings in the new format, so said critics would be able to report on this new exciting development as part of their reviews. And most of them really didn't like it. Before you ask, I'm actually in the like it camp. The technology isn't 100% there yet in some respects, but you can already see the difference that drastically improved image clarity and more lifelike movement is going to make, and I'm pretty excited to see where it goes from here. But as far as critics go, that puts me in the minority. A lot of the consensus is that they dislike the look and feel of this new format because it doesn't look like a real movie, by which most of them tend to mean it doesn't look like movies have always looked before this. Like I said, there are definitely issues with the technology as it stands right now. The greater clarity of motion means that the characters and objects sometimes appear to move with unnatural speed, for one thing, but a bigger issue is that most makeup, special effects, and prop techniques in use today were designed to have their seams, well, hidden by the slightly less than clear reality of a 24 frames per second image, and since no one has had any reason to account for any greater clarity before now, the illusion of the characters' inhuman features, heavy skill weaponry, etc. look more like the rubber appliances and plastic props that they actually are. This will get ironed out soon enough on its own, but yes, now it's a bit distracting in spots. Here's the funny thing about frame rates though, the idea that 24 FPS has been the consistent standard for most of the medium's lifespan isn't exactly correct. For example, the 24 number mainly refers to the speed at which images were photographed. The projection speed actually varies based on the type of film itself, meaning frames refers to the number of identical frames as opposed to each individual one. Here's another fun fact on those same lines. Hand-drawn animation typically used 12 frames for each second of footage, with each frame being photographed twice to space it out to 24. Japanese hand-drawn animation, however, often photographed the same frame 3 times to save money for a total of only 8 separate images per second. That's why so much anime produced prior to the early 2000s seemed to move so much more sharply and deliberately than Western cartoons did. Today, there's not so much technical difference, of course, because damn near all animation is being done digitally and no one is trying to cut corners on paper as a result. Oh, and speaking of digital, since more and more movies are being shot on high-definition video and almost all of them are being projected digitally now, increasingly actual frames don't even really exist other than as a manner of measuring image speed. So while the new tech debuting with The Hobbit is indeed quite different than what's come before, it's also hardly come out of nowhere. Either way, I recommend checking it out if you have the opportunity, if only to see what all the fuss is about and to see if you agree with the critics. I'm Bob, and that's the big picture.